Welcome to the Hall of Teams, the podcast where sports legends live again, where founding stories are dusted off like vintage jerseys, where crests, nicknames, and colors aren't just designs, but identities, where the teams we love are more than scores on a scoreboard. They are time capsules of culture, community, and change. I'm your host, Kirk Jensen, and today we begin at the very beginning. First time playing the game became a job. The first team to take baseball to the nation. Today, we induct an amazing team, the Cincinnati Red Stockings, into the Hall of Teams. Chapter 1. A game becomes a job. Before 1869, sport in America was strictly amateur. Baseball was growing in popularity, but the players had day jobs. Teams were local, loose, and playing for pride, not pay. The very idea of a paid athlete was scandalous. Gentlemen played for honor, not money. But in Cincinnati, Ohio, a growing river town filled with energy and ambition, the future was stirring. In 1866, Cincinnati formed an amateur baseball team. And after a few strong seasons and a desire to compete with the big teams of the East Coast, the club leaders made a bold decision. In 1869, they would pay every single player on the roster. No more under-the-table incentives. No more pretending. The Red Stockings would be professional. Chapter 2. The Vision of Harry Wright. Credit must go to Harry Wright, the visionary manager, player, and architect of the Red Stockings. Wright believed that training, strategy, and athleticism could elevate baseball, and that paying players would attract the best talent and ensure serious commitment. In 1869, driven by their vision, the Red Stockings directors took major steps to elevate the club to national prominence. Entrusting Harry Wright with the war chest to recruit talent on a scale the sport had never seen before. He assembled a roster of elite players from across the country. These weren't just local boys anymore. This was America's first national team. So who were these game changers in crimson? Let's meet the starting nine of the Red Stockings. Fred Waterman, New York, third base. Cal McVeigh, Indianapolis, right field. George Wright, Cincinnati, shortstop. Doug Allison, Philadelphia, catcher. Harry Wright, Cincinnati, center field manager. Charlie Gould, Washington, first base. Andy Leonard, New Jersey, left field. Charlie Swayze, New Jersey, second base. Asa Brainerd, Washington, D.C., pitcher. And Dick Hurley from Maine, the utility player. The Red Stockings were the first to back a team with a bankroll, spending $9,300 in salaries, which is over $200,000 today. At the top of the scale stood their brightest star, shortstop George Wright, earning $1,400 per season, the highest salary on the team. And he was worth every penny. Wright batted leadoff, and what followed was a season for the ages. 49 home runs, an average of nearly 6 hits per game, 339 runs scored, and an astonishing .629 batting average. To make that number relative, Babe Ruth's best batting average for a season was .393. George Brett, .390. Mickey Mantle, .365. George was not just a shortstop, but a storm that batted at the top of the lineup. Welcome to Trivia from the Hall, where we spotlight the strange, surprising, and significant stories that shaped the world of sport. The early teams did not wear baseball gloves. Players caught the ball with their bare hands, and for a short time, a few players even caught the ball with their cap. Doug Allison, a catcher, is often credited as one of the first players to wear a glove, as early as 1870. In the early 1900s, manufacturers like Spalding began mass-producing gloves closer to the models we recognize today. Albert Spalding? Yes, the company founder. He had a pitching record of 54-5 in 1875. Chapter 3, 1869, The Perfect Season. Credited as one of the first coaches in American sport to fully adopt the concept of teamwork, Harry Wright drilled his players during the spring of 1869 to prepare for a tour against the East Coast powers. On May 4th, 1869, the Red Stockings took the field for their first official game, a local clash against the Great Westerns. But the real story was the setting. The Cincinnati Union Grounds, home to the towering Grand Duchess Grandstand, whose location you saw earlier in the episode on the fly-in. Built to hold 4,000, yet crowds sometimes tripled that number, spilling into every corner for a glimpse of these rising stars. This was no ordinary ballpark. It was enclosed, it had a fence, and it had entrance gates. And for the first time in baseball history, it had a ticket price. That day, the Red Stockings won 45-9, starting on the road to a historic run. No one in baseball could have fully predicted just how dominant the Red Stockings would become that season. They opened with 18 straight wins against local competition. A perfect start. But the real test was waiting back east. And on May 31st, they boarded the train. Their destination? Baseball's biggest stage. The National Baseball Hall of Fame would call it the greatest road trip in baseball history. The Red Stockings embarked on their 32-day East Coast tour, facing the game's most formidable clubs: Cleveland, Buffalo, Rochester, Troy, Albany, Boston, New York City, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and finally, Washington, D.C., where they even had an audience with President Ulysses S. Grant. After beating the New York Mutuals 4-2 on the tour, the Cincinnati Gazette proclaimed, "We are tossing our hats tonight and shaking each other by the hand. We are the Lions because we have beaten the Mutuals and because the game was the toughest, closest, most brilliant, most exciting in baseball annals." No quarter asked, no quarter given. 21 games, 21 wins. Over 1,800 miles of iron rails. And with each stop, they shattered expectations and redrew the map of baseball power. The message was unmistakable. The Midwest wasn't chasing the game, it was leading it. If you're listening on your favorite podcast app, just know the full video version is on YouTube, featuring vintage footage, archival visuals, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content you won't want to miss. Let's rewind to baseball's beginning. Back then, pitchers didn't hurl the ball overhand. They tossed it underhand and with spin. And Asa Brainerd, he didn't just pitch. He made that ball dance. He curved it, he confused hitters, and he earned a nickname that still echoes for pitchers through ballparks today: Ace. And here's another thing. The catcher, he wasn't crouched behind the plate. He stood 15 feet behind the batter. No glove, just bare hands, a leather ball, and nerves of steel. And that ball, it wasn't the stitched rocket we know now. It was handcrafted, lemon peel seams, rubber core, wrapped in yarn, softer, slower. But in the hands of the Red Stockings, it still flew. In the late summer of 1869, the Cincinnati Red Stockings embarked on another groundbreaking leg of their season, this time toward the Pacific. Their journey westward would span 4,700 miles aboard the newly completed Transcontinental Railway, whose final connection had been marked just a year earlier with the ceremonial Golden Spike at Promontory Summit, Utah. It was a bold and unprecedented move, taking professional baseball to the farthest reaches of the young nation. The players themselves were young, with most in their early 20s. Imagine the excitement as they boarded their Pullman car. Eyes wide, spirits high, bound for the distant Pacific coast. They didn't know what kind of ball clubs they would face, how crowds out west would receive them, or whether the mystique of their undefeated record would survive the trip. The Red Stockings West Coast tour carried them through Omaha, Cheyenne, and Salt Lake City, key stops along the newly completed railroad. No official games were played in those cities, but they demonstrated a bold and symbolic push into uncharted territory. The action began in Sacramento, California. From there, they dazzled crowds in Stockton, Oakland, San Francisco, and San Jose, each stop adding to their growing legend. Across the West, fans packed the grounds to see a team that seemed to have achieved mythical status. This was more than a ball club. It was a movement, carrying the game across mountains, deserts, and frontiers, bringing it to the people. In the late 1800s, crank was a term used by newspapers of the era to describe an overzealous baseball fan. The term likely came from the idea of someone being cranked up or overly enthusiastic about their team. Over time, as the sport's popularity grew and its fan base expanded, the term fan, short for the word fanatic, became more prevalent, and crank fell out of common usage. Over the course of one relentless year, the Red Stockings played before an amazing total of over 200,000 fans. And they didn't lose, not once. 57 games, 57 wins. The New York Clipper newspaper declared, "The result of the season's play places the Cincinnati club ahead of all competition, and we hail them as the champion club of the United States." The Cincinnati Red Stockings proved that sport could be a profession and a point of civic pride. That year, the Red Stockings were honored at home, not just as players, but as pioneers. On the Union grounds in Cincinnati, the city gathered to celebrate. For the team was a gift, a 27-foot bat made of ash, painted, polished, and inscribed, "Champion Bat, 1869. It was proof baseball had become national, professional, and unstoppable. Chapter 4, 1870, Southbound Thunder. The history books had barely closed on their perfect season when the Red Stockings opened the next chapter in 1870. They didn't return that spring with caution. They returned with thunder. No warm-up, no easing in. They came out charging, on rails, with grit, and with purpose. This time, they were heading south. Louisville, Nashville, Memphis, New Orleans, Mobile, Montgomery, Atlanta, Savannah, Charleston, Richmond, and then the capital, Washington, D.C. The cities rolled by like drumbeats of a march. Across the deep south they surged, bringing baseball to new corners of the nation. The South had witnessed them, Now the entire nation knew them. Chapter 5. The streak ends, the legend begins. But all things must end, so that history can be written and legacies forged. On the afternoon of June 14, 1870, at the Capitol grounds in Brooklyn, the Red Stockings were up against the powerful Atlantics, playing before a crowd of 9,000, and the game so anticipated that the usual admission price of 25 cents was doubled, where each Atlantic player under the gate sharing system would take home an incredible $364, and at that time, a year's salary for a common laborer. That afternoon saw an epic back and forth battle, and after 9 innings, the game was tied 5-5. The Atlantics wanted to call the game a draw, but Harry Wright's boys insisted on playing extra innings. When the Red Stockings scored twice in the top of the 11th, it appeared that victory would be theirs. But the Atlantics rallied for 3 runs in the bottom of the 11th and won the game 8-7. The news was announced in a telegram to Cincinnati. New York, June 14, 1870. Atlantics 8, Cincinnati 7. The finest game ever played. Our boys did nobly, but fortune was against them. 11 innings played, though beaten, not disgraced. Aaron B. Champion, President, Cincinnati Baseball Club. Even greatness doesn't guarantee sustainability. Other teams began to catch up to Wright's once indomitable club. Cincinnati lost a total of 6 games during the 1870 season, causing many fickle fans to abandon the team. Citing financial pressures, the Red Stockings Board of Directors disbanded the team and returned it to amateur status. And just like that, the team that redefined the sport faced its final inning. But their numbers, their legacy, unshakable. Counting their final 8 wins in 1868, the flawless 57 wins in 1869, and another 24 to start 1870, plus a few undocumented games lost to time, some historians believe the Cincinnati Red Stockings may have strung together as many as 130 consecutive victories. 130 in a row. To try to put some perspective on that number, the longest current winning streak in Major League Baseball is 26, set by the 1916 New York Giants. Over 100 games less than the Red Stockings. The Red Stockings didn't just set the bar, they built it. Chapter 6. A Nation Takes the Field. The 1870s marked a time when professional baseball was bursting into a new era of excitement. Teams started popping up across the country. The sound of the bat, the roar of the crowd. It was the dawn of something bigger. And in 1871, baseball took a bold leap forward with the creation of the first fully professional sports league, the National Association of Professional Baseball Players, known simply to fans and historians as the National Association. This pioneering league blazed the trail from 1871 to 1875. Then came the moment that reshaped the game. In 1876, a handful of clubs from the National Association and the Amateur League came together to form something lasting, something legendary, the National League of Professional Baseball Clubs. Today, we call it the National League. So while the original Red Stockings only lasted 2 seasons, the echo of their impact endures across 2 franchises, an entire league, and a nation's pastime. Chapter 7. Why They Matter. The Red Stockings didn't just win. They didn't just travel. They redefined what a team could be. From Boston's cobblestone streets to the hills of San Francisco, from the bayous of New Orleans to the Capitol steps in Washington. 12,000 miles, dozens of cities, 0 defeats. They didn't wait for baseball to grow. They brought it with them. Town by town, track by track, until the game became more than local. It became American. Because of them, teams would tour, fans would follow, and baseball would belong to the nation. Imagine, no Red Stockings, no contracts, no agents, no road trips, no merchandise, no $300 million deals, no Dodgers, no Cubs, no Yankees. They were the first to turn fans into paying ticket holders, players into full-time professionals, sport into a lasting institution. So today, we honor their vision, their courage, and their legacy, and enshrine the Cincinnati Red Stockings into the Hall of Teams. Not just for what they won, but for what they began. In the Hall of Teams, legends just don't live in the past. They rise again through you. This year, you decide who earns the title Team of the Year. An honor that just isn't a title, it's a legacy that knows no borders. Across all sports, across time, and across the world. Want your team to win? Watch their episode, like it, comment with hashtag Team of the Year and your team's name. And make sure you subscribe, because every voice counts, and every vote is a chance to make history again. On December 15th, the team with the most likes, comments, and new subscribers for the year will be voted in by you, the fans, and honored as Team of the Year. Their logo will be immortalized on the Wall of Honor. And remember, you can watch this full episode on the Hall of Teams YouTube channel. See you there. Thanks for joining us on this journey into global sports history. If there's a team you would like to nominate into the Hall of Teams, drop it in the comments using hashtag nominate plus your team name and help shape future inductions. Next time, we cross the ocean to uncover the story of the Sheffield Football Club, the oldest football club in the world, a team that helped define the rules, rituals, and rhythm of the beautiful game. It may have even changed a nation's identity in the process. Until then, remember, behind every logo is a legacy, and behind every team, a tale worth telling. I'm Kirk Jensen, and this is the Hall of Teams.